Hey there, this is Pastor Josh. And I want to start off by saying this is the umpteenth time I've tried to record this video. It's a very heartbreaking issue that I want to talk about, and it's really about those who reject Jesus. You and I see Jesus as supreme, glorious, powerful, beautiful, majestic. So it's heartbreaking when we know that others don't see him that same way. And I noticed this when I was reading yesterday in John chapter 7, and I want to read what some people of the Jewish nation said. Others asked, "How can the Messiah come from Galilee?" And here's John 7:42. "Does not Scripture say that the Messiah will come from David's descendants and from Bethlehem, the town where David lived?" When I read that, I'm like, yeah, but you just either ask Jesus or ask somebody who knows him. They'll tell you that Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Maybe he's the Messiah, but they didn't search for answers. They just went with what they thought they knew about Jesus, and they rejected him. Well, just like the people in John 7 rejected the Messiah, there are those today who rejected him. And I'm not even talking about unbelievers. There are millions who have rejected Jesus, but I'm really talking about church leaders rejecting Jesus after years of visible ministry. There's a long list of those. I think of Michael Gungor. He wrote a song called Beautiful Things, which is one of my favorite songs in the world. You've got Jonathan Merritt, he's a Christian journalist. Joshua Harris, a big Christian leader back in the 90s. He helped create the purity culture in evangelical churches. He wrote I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And then Marty Sampson, he's a Hillsong artist and songwriter. He announced that he was leaving the faith. But today on Instagram, I saw some heartbreaking news that the now former lead singer of the Christian group Hawk Nelson has announced that he has left the faith. And he includes a long letter describing his journey. And he cites some issues that he's struggled with. He describes it as a sweater, and then the strands of the sweater started to come unraveling. It's been a process until there was no sweater left. And so here are some of the issues. And as I read the list of issues, I just wrote down some things he said. As I read these issues, I want you to think to yourself, do you struggle with these issues? Because these are common matters that Christians and non-Christians struggle with. So here's what John Steingard wrote. He struggled with the idea of how a loving God could allow evil in the world. Marty Sampson of Hillsong also listed that as the main reason that he left the faith. What about free will? And how could a loving God send people to hell? How could God command in the Old Testament for Israel to wipe out an entire city or nation? What about the contradictions in the Bible? John Steingard noted that he found it problematic that Paul taught in 1 Timothy. I don't want to get into that, but Paul's view on women in leadership and teaching. And that basically he saw Christianity as an obligation, that he didn't find joy in prayer, reading scripture, in going to church. And before you lay into this guy and say there are answers, hey, read Case for Faith, which deals with all of this. And I actually, to speak about that book, I know two people. One of them's one of my best friends in the world. He came to faith, and he went from basically not believing in God. He had all these questions. He talked to some people. He read this book, Case for Faith by Lee Strobel. It's like, hey, this makes sense. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and he came to faith. There are answers out there, and you might be yelling at the screen, be like, Josh, just give them this book. Have them watch this video. It doesn't make sense. But you know, each of us is on our own faith journey. And we each struggle with faith differently. Me, there's really only been one time in my life where I doubted my faith. It was during college, and I started to question, like, how I've given my life to this thing called Christianity, following Jesus. How do I know it's true? You know what? It lasted for about a day. Then I was like, I remember driving in my 1987 Ford Escort, being like, you know what? Jesus rose from the dead. Of course this is all true. And so outside of that, I've never really struggled with faith. And, you know, maybe that's because I've went to Bible college and seminary, and I know how to find the answers. But I just don't struggle with that. But I know that other people do. So where are you on that spectrum? Do you hear these issues that I just read off and be like, yeah, I want to know. I want to know when I read in the Old Testament and they're supposed to stone people for certain sins, and they're supposed to kill other nations. It's like, how do I reconcile that with this God of love that I hear about? Now, do you struggle with these questions? If so, yes, there are answers, but I just want to say right now, it's okay to have doubt. These are big issues that if you do not answer, your faith may crumble, just like John Steingart's and these other people that I mentioned. But maybe your faith is like, well, those aren't issues for me. I believe the Bible's true. I believe that God's good. He's great. All those issues aren't really anything to me. Where are you? Where are you on that spectrum? Are you certain, or do you have doubt? And if you have doubt, and I don't want to offer a lot of answers right now except this, I know that I would be available to talk with you about these things. I don't want to offer and say Patrick's going to. I haven't even talked to him about this, but I'm just thinking, you know, I recall a young lady named Annie. And I shouldn't even bring this up because I don't want to cry again, but Annie struggled with a lot of these same issues. She wasn't a believer. We even had a group of about 12, 13 of us get together for 2 different Sundays over lunch in a loft space in Kansas City, and really just have a conversation about that. Really find out the answers and just talk about it together. Annie never really found the answers she was looking for, and she several months later ended her life. There was no hope in life. So there is hope. There are answers. If you have doubt, talk to me. Talk to someone who can help you with your doubt. Provide some answers. Provide some questions for you to think about. But here, in my role at Smithfield Baptist, you know, one of my main responsibilities is your student. So I'm also thinking not just about you, but I'm thinking about your student. And I want them to have a lifelong faith in Jesus Christ, seeing Him as supreme, the one who died for them, who rose from the dead, who ascended to heaven, seated at the right hand of God, and who will come back to judge the world and to recreate this world, make it perfect and new, and He will be with us forever. We will be with the Lord forever. That's what I want for your student. That's what I want for you. I know over the middle school and high school years, we have plans to talk about these issues because we want your student, your middle schooler or high schooler, to know that there are answers. And it's okay to doubt. God's bigger than our doubt. All right? He's big enough to handle our questions. So your students going to hear about it in our youth ministry, but what are they hearing at home? What are they seeing at home? Do they see a vibrant faith that's all into Jesus? You talking about Jesus, you praying to Jesus, exuding Jesus, worshiping Jesus. Or is the seed of doubt in your mind? And if that seed of doubt is there, oh man, talk to somebody, all right? We can't let you just leave the faith because you didn't find the answers. So I'm saying I know there are other people, Sunday school teachers, there are people who will help you find the answers. So I'm going to sign off before I start crying too much, but until next time, love God, love life, love others.